All right, we wrap it up with our final game for this week's edition of Hitting the Books, and it is a big one. USC Notre Dame. This is going to be your Saturday night, Saturday night NBC game in prime time. Notre Dame 2.5-point home favorites, 60.5 being the total in this game. How about that? Notre Dame favored here at home against USC. And, it's funny. I have a few Notre Dame fans that I know. Jimmy Murphy, who I've done, we used to be on my regular colleague on the Ice Guys show, and he still appears on that show once a week during the NHL season. He's a big Notre Dame fan. He was very upset with the performance against Louisville, saying, what's going on here now? That's 2 losses. Well, look at this schedule. I blame the AD, Jack Swarbrick, here for Notre Dame for agreeing to a schedule like this where you play Ohio State, Duke, and Louisville 3 straight games, including 2 of them back-to-back on the road. That looked like a Notre Dame team to me that just hit the wall. They were gassed. They played Ohio State, which was a down-to-the-wire, tough. They had to exert a lot of energy in that game. The Duke game, down to the wire on the road. They had to really push themselves in that game, and they had to try to, do it again against Louisville. And I think they kind of just wore down. They hit a wall, I think, and I think that's a big part of it. Now, they didn't play well, but I think they were really worn down in that Louisville game. Just a brutally tough schedule, 3 incredibly tough games in a row. And the fact that they were worn down against Louisville last week, I know they're going to be at back home, Notre Dame Stadium. The crowd will be pump them up a little bit for a Saturday night game against a good USC team, but they look like they were, running on fumes last week. And I worry about that for Notre Dame here in this game. And say what you will about how bad USC's defense can be, but now you're finally getting this team as an underdog, catching points with one of the best offenses and quarterbacks in college football in Caleb Williams. And what's funny, Conor, is I was talking about how much he struggled, Caleb Williams, early in the game against Arizona, and they still ended up scoring 43 points, even though that was like well into the second quarter that he struggled in that game. And they still ended up with well over almost 400 total yards of offense. So, it's been one thing for betting against USC this year, and they're 0-3 ATS coming into this game, their last 3 games, but they're 34.5-point favorites against Arizona State, 22.5-point favorites against Colorado, 21.5-point favorites against Arizona. Huge favorites with that shaky, leaky defense that we talk about week in and week out, but this is a totally different point spread range. Now they're plus 2.5. They're getting points. They've got this Heisman candidate quarterback. They've got this explosive offense, the likes of which Notre Dame's defense has not seen this year, outside of maybe Ohio State. And they did play well in that Ohio State game on defense. But I'd say USC throws probably even a greater element of speed and athleticism and explosiveness at them compared to Ohio State. So I'm leaning to the Trojans here in this matchup as a slight dog. Don't know if I'll bet it, but I'm definitely looking at that side. I worry about where Notre Dame's at, not only mentally, but physically. That looked like a worn down, exhausted football team against Louisville on Saturday night. And that's not what I want to see when you're playing this juggernaut, explosive USC offensive attack coming into your place. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, well, they better get up for it this week. SC coming into town, they better get reared up. In this game, that last week against Louisville, Hartman just awful. He finally had one of those games he would have at Wake where he threw 3 picks. They had 2 lost fumbles, 5 turnovers.
Hadn't thrown an interception, Sam Hartman, this season until Saturday. Yep.
He bounces back this week. SC still has a horrible defense. Notre Dame has the way better defense, and it shows up. The game's good. We have bad weather here. Another one, Babano. Wind about 20. 50 degrees, some rain, automatic overs for SC. It still could be. There still could be points, but there is some weather. So look out for that. I know they're laying it short here too, but Notre Dame here, I think they bounce back at home and win this football game. And it's tough because I've been anti-Hartman, and I don't think he's won much of anything. They did get by with Duke.
He made that big Sam Hartman, you're putting your faith in him this week. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's early. Notre Dame early here. But, yeah, I think he can play a lot better than last week.
And he's going to have to because, look, as good as Notre Dame's defense has been at times this year, you're not shutting down USC's offense completely. That's going to be the thing. And another thing to keep in mind here in this game tonight or Saturday is, You're right. This growing problem with Sam Hartman in these big games against the best teams on his schedule. He never won these games at Wake Forest. Clemson
Ever.
always cleaned his clock every year, and he didn't always play great against them. And we see the first step-up game they had against Ohio State, and the offense struggled throughout that game. And I know they survived Duke, but again, if Riley Leonard doesn't get hurt, does Notre Dame win that game? I'm not so sure. And then, of course, Louisville, the offense couldn't get going, and Sam Hartman struggled. So there is that growing concern about whether he's got it in him to play at his best, play well in these big games against these best teams. He's had a good career. There's no doubt overall, good college career. But for it to go down as a terrific, tremendous, outstanding college football career, he's got to start winning games like this. He has to. So, we'll see how it goes here for Notre Dame, but a very intriguing game. Again, you're right about the weather. Keep an eye on it. Well, that's probably why this total has actually dropped a little bit, 62.5 to 60.5, because of the concerns with potential for rain and wind Saturday night at Notre Dame between these two teams. And it might come down to who can run the football better in this game. And, they do have estimate Notre Dame to be able to run the football, although Marshawn Lloyd's pretty damn good for USC. I mean, you got actually two terrific running backs in this game, to be quite honest. Looks like Notre Dame is averaging 5 yards per carry, 171 per game on the ground. And then you've got USC run defense giving up 90th in rushing yards per game allowed and 4.2 yards per carry, 78th. How's that Notre Dame run defense? 132.93. So their yards per carry run defense for Notre Dame's a little bit better than USC's. And their 157 rushing yards per game allowed for USC is not as good as Notre Dame's, which is 132.9, the rushing yards they've allowed. So run defense for Notre Dame does look a little better than USC's, and it could be that kind of game if the weather's going to be a problem.
Yeah, that's big. And just on the passing, because the weather too, that's been Notre Dame's strength. That's where they have top numbers, But, they haven't seen Caleb Williams, and we have the weather.
That's right.
Because that's where they've been great, 146 through the air.
I'm still gonna saddle, and again, that doesn't mean I have this that I'm gonna bet USC, but again, Hartman's problem winning these games against the best competition, and now we get USC and this great offense as an underdog. So I'm still leaning that way here with USC. Should be a good Saturday night game though between these two teams.